Men over 40 fall in love through these 5 stages. We're going to dive into this today. While the title is about men, I believe what I'm sharing today actually applies to women as well. And when we think of love, we think of commitment. But love is different than commitment to some degree. And I want to dive into this today because love is an intangible. Sometimes we can't put our fingers on how we feel it, but I think we know it when we feel this way. And I think when we say I love you from a healthy place, not from an insecure place. And if you're not familiar with love attachment style, I highly recommend you write it down, Google it, and do your work on it, because most people find themselves in insecure love. But what I think healthy love looks like, it looks like this. I'm here. You matter. We are important. I've got your back. I'm not going anywhere, and I only want you. I'm here means I'm present. I'm not thinking about a past relationship. I'm not looking at upleveling like a lot of people do to upgrade. They are here in the moment. You matter. That means your feelings matter to me to the same degree that my feelings matter to me. In other words, your well-being is commensurate to my well-being. You matter. We are important. That means the relationship is a separate entity. In other words, there's a you, there's a me, and then there's a we. We are sovereign beings coming together to co-create something. So I want to repeat that. I'm here. You matter. We're important. I've got your back. That means I'm going to be there for you when you need me. I'm going to be there for you when you need me. I'm not going anywhere. That means I'm fully committed to this relationship. And I only want you means you're the reason why we're in romantic relationship with each other is I physically crave you. And so this takes time. This is going to take these 5 stages, which I'm about to share with you in a moment. But I want you to look at levels of commitment, or commitment through levels. And I'm going to share something with you today, because what is dating? Dating is about getting to the truth of a person. Dating is about feeling trust with another person. And as I said, to get to that I love you stage is going to take some time. Now, what do these levels of commitment look like? I think one of the first things 2 people should commit to is being honest with each other, being honest with each other, being your truthful self. I think the first level of commitment is the agreement to speaking our truth to one another. Do you know in our current dating process, there's such ambivalence to this. It's all about attraction and entertainment. That's what the dating process is. Men must climb to the highest room of the tallest tower. They must entertain you. They must plan and pay for dates. There's an entertainment of each other, because how do you like each other if you can't be entertained? That's the way humans tend to operate. I'm here to offer a different way of operating by starting with your truth, by starting with radical honesty, by being authentic, by being transparent to who you are. But you got to know who you are first. You have to know thyself. What does know thyself look like? You might want to figure out your love attachment style first. And again, if you're not familiar with the work of Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller, all the books I recommend are listed below. First, know your love attachment style. I think another thing is know your fears and insecurities. That's what self-awareness is about. Knowing your limiting beliefs, your negative patterns, the things that trigger you. Because how can you give the truth of another person if you don't know the truth of yourself? And it's to examine your past relationships and take ownership of past relationships and recognize that we all come to the table with some weaknesses. But the first level, if 2 sovereign beings show up, is let's commit to telling the truth. I think given that the physical components of relationships tend to be the driving force, we tend to be more physically motivated to connect with one another. It takes a little longer. I mean, you can do the emotional, intellectual, spiritual, practical stuff all at the same time, but physical tends to drive the bus. So the next layer of commitment if two people are physically attracted to one another, is an agreement of monogamy, and to take that a step further, agreeing to exclusivity. And I'll share that with you in a moment. And I think as two people enter into this stage of agreements through these 5 stages I'm about to share with you, it'll start to make sense, because the next level of commitment is committing to teamwork with one another, committing to integrating into each other's lives. Meaning, I meet your friends, you meet my friends, you meet my family. Now, some people like to prolong this, but to actually get to know another person, it is through experiences. But Jonathon, I'm just supposed to sit back in my feminine energy and just let the man lead the process because men know what they're doing. Well, if men were so great at knowing what they're doing, why do women initiate 80% of divorces if men are so great at knowing this? And also, well, Jonathon, I can't, this is another but Jonathon, we live so far apart, we're not spending regular time with one another to actually get to know one another. Well, then what you have is a cyber relationship, and you can have cyber love. But if you want to have that heart-centered connection of being there for one another, you have to be physically in each other's presence. And through teamwork is how you're going to get there. Now, some people will argue, take time to do this. I have a different belief. I think we should dive in to agree to get to know each other as much as you possibly can, as quickly as you possibly can, because our current dating process, it's just a long out, drawn out version of friends with benefits. People aren't integrating into each other's lives, waiting months and months and months, if not years, to integrate, only to find out they move on because they weren't compatible with one another. So teamwork is that next level. And then the final level is really all in. Remember I said, I'm here, you matter, we're important, I've got your back. I'm not going anywhere, I only want you. That is all in. That's like, look, for better, for poor, sickness and health, we're going to get through this. Now, you may want to use something I call my dating vows. And by the way, there's a link below to get a copy of what I'm about to share with you today. This is if two people like each other, they agree to the following. These are the commitments and agreements you make to one another, because an agreement is a commitment. And these are just a few commitments I offer every one of you to start pay attention to, because this is how love is built. And the agreements look like this. This is called my dating vows. Starts with I statements. I, fill in the blank, agree to explore the process of getting to know you from a truthful place with the intent to declare something serious within 3 to 6 months. Folks, we shouldn't, by the way, most people know if they want to be serious with most men know if they want to be serious with someone within 3 and at the most 6 months. Otherwise, they are just otherwise you are just a placeholder in their life to fill space. I call these men spenders. They want to spend time with you, but they're not capable of anything deeper. The next one, I agree to monogamy while we're sexual together. I agree to monogamy. I think it's only fair. We don't want to catch cooties from other people. I know some people agree to ethical non-monogamy, but I'm not a big fan of that. I'm like, look, if two people are physically intimate, they agree to monogamy. And the next is, I agree not to actively seek and meet and date others while we're in the dating process, including taking down our dating profiles. That's what exclusivity is. There's a difference. We oftentimes interchange them. One says, I'm not going to sleep with someone else. And another says, I'm not going to actively look for someone else. A lot of people agree to monogamy, but they're not really exclusive in that case. Now, we talked about speaking your truth. So coming back to this, there's another agreement I offer all of you to suggest to make, and that is, I agree to speak up if this isn't working for me, versus pulling back, ghosting, or disappearing. I think if more people now, by the way, are men and women going to agree or adhere to these commitments? Well, not as a guarantee, but I'm going to tell you, you have greater chance for success when you start making agreements with each other very early on, because what is dating? Getting to the truth to one another. It's about building trust. And lastly, it's agreeing to invest regular time in the process to getting to know each other, which looks like creating a framework. I always say 3 or 4 days and nights a week together, doing shared activities, hobbies, mutual interest, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills, both in your personal and your professional life, intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy that leads to some level of commitment, moving in together, or even getting married. Now, why this title is Men Over 40 is the over 40 crowd is different than those in their 20s and 30s. When people are in their 20s and 30s, they usually have this shared vision of making babies and raising a family. And for those of us in midlife, that is so radically different because we come to the table with our own luggage or baggage in our lives. This is why a lot of couples are not opting for living together or getting married. They're opting for the following. It's called living apart together. Living apart together. Again, all the books I recommend are listed below. Living apart together. Hey, it's 11:11 right now. Okay, what that means is two sovereign beings who have their own separate homes, but they get to come together. It might feel casual in that sense, but it's fully committed at the same level. And that's what so many midlife folks are opting for. But to get there, you're going to most likely have to go through these 5 stages. Now, I didn't say how men fall in love. I say men fall in love through these 5 stages. So the first stage, oh, by the way, today I'm going to apply the Tuckman model for team building, how teams move through stages as they overcome challenges. This is a professional behavioral scientist in corporations that work with teams. And I'm applying this teamwork model called the Tuckman model to this conversation. And there's 5 stages within. It's really technically 4 stages. The 5th stage, well, I'll get to it in a second. So the first stage of building a team, and by the way, team, all you need is 2 people to have a team, okay? It doesn't have to be like basketball where there's 5, or baseball where there's 9, or football where there's 11. What other sports are there? Anyways, there's certainly tennis and that sort of thing that can be 2. Okay, forming. Mostly in the forming stage these days, it's focused on attraction, but it's also about spending regular time together. And most importantly, it's about determining, and I'm inviting you all, write this down. What is your shared passion? What is your shared passion? See, remember I said 20s and 30-year-olds focus on making babies and raising a family. While that might not be a passion of theirs, per se, it's a strong desire or vision. What is your shared passion? What is your shared vision? Without knowing what that is, it's going to be radically complicated. Now, this doesn't mean, it could be your shared passion is nature. Maybe your shared passion is stand-up paddleboard. Maybe your shared passion is personal development, self-help, and spiritual work, like it is. That's what my passion is. Maybe it's hiking. Did I say nature? Whatever your shared passion is. Now, some people, their shared passion is their professional life, co-joining with one another. That's what the first 90 days is about. It's about getting to the truth. It's about building trust, but most importantly, finding out what your shared passion is. Now, the second stage, this isn't very popular, but it's called the storming stage. This is where differences emerge, communication style differences, commitment desires, and the emotional responsibility of a relationship. A relationship comes with it emotional requirements. We talked about that. I'm here, you matter, we're important, I've got your back. There's a responsibility for having someone's back. It requires effort is what I mean. I don't mean it in a responsibility in like a weighted type of thing. I mean, it requires effort. And the storming represents conflict because differences are going to emerge. Sadly, most human beings communicate in a confrontational way. If you're not familiar with these 2 books, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg and I Hear You by Michael Sorensen. I will tell you, communication style differences is where a lot of storms start to emerge. And sometimes it could just simply be a misunderstanding. Their ability to resolve the conflicts and repair quickly, as Esther Perel will say, or talks about, the repair quickly is what moves you to the next stage of a relationship. And this is where deeper love is built between couples. And that is called norming. You've overcome challenges because the whole is greater than the parts. This is where you start accepting a person for who they are. You guys remember the movie When Harry Met Sally? Sally was a very unusual person when it came to ordering food. And when Harry first saw her, he goes, "Oh my God, she's insane." And he had to tolerate it during the first scene that he experienced that. But as he got to know her, he got to understand this difference between her and him, the way they ordered food. And then he reached a place of acceptance. This is where love begins to occur, when we start to accept another human being for who they are. See, a lot of couples never get to this level of acceptance. And then ultimately, did you notice in Harry Met Sally? He appreciated her style and he eventually adored it. He even says at the end of the movie, "I love it that it takes you an hour and a half to order a ham sandwich." In other words, he began to adore the differences. This is where the norming stage comes. Now, very few couples meet this next stage where they're actually performing with one another, where they have a shared vision, where they're growing together consciously, whatever it looks like for couples. See, this is starting to move into that all-in phase of commitment that I talked about before. And a lot of couples don't meet this from in other words, again, men are the leaders of relationship. They should just lead everything and they should just know what they're doing. Well, we have a population of men in their 40s that are really clueless because they didn't know any better in their 20s and 30s. And so just because somebody is older, 50 or in their 60s, like myself, most of us are rather clueless. I'm here to say you are in charge of your relationship destiny. Don't leave that up to anyone else but yourself. And if you want the relationship to perform, then start to lead by example, ways to perform. We can talk about that in another video. And lastly, this stage, and it's called adjourning. See, a good couple knows when a relationship has reached its end. See, death do us part might sound admirable, but I think it's foolish. I think relationships are here to help us grow. Love is here to help us grow through self-love. And if you're not familiar with my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, and Spiritual Work, get a copy of the books I recommend. Ultimately, some relationships are there to bring us, it's like they say, it's a lesson, a season, a reason, a season, or a lifetime, okay? And some there's just, it's okay to adjourn. It's okay to say, you know what? We're not really a fit for the long term. There can still be care for another person, but that deeper level of commitment. Again, as I said earlier, love is an intangible. And sometimes the lovingest thing you can do is to say, it's okay to move on. And there's a mourning period that happens when you adjourn. And that's an opportunity to self-reflect and work on oneself. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts as I talk about how men and women fall in love through these 5 stages. If you have something to share, post a comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, hey, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's a link to follow, to get all the books I recommend, to follow me on Instagram, to get those dating vows. Just look below in the show notes to get the dating vows. All right, I'm going to wrap up this video as I always do. First off, give myself a big, gigantic Jonathon hug of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love if that's okay. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow, and give it or them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. Thanks a bunch. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye.